The storm rolled in like a whisper wrapped in knives, silent, slicing, blinding. Snow blanketed Cryova 7, thick as guilt, cold as memory. On this frozen carcass of a planet, nothing moved without a purpose. The wind screamed across skeletal ruins, half-buried Terran bunkers, shredded antennae, graves etched into ice. Nothing grew here. Nothing forgave. And high above, nestled in the jagged cliffs of an abandoned forward watchpost, a rusted rifle exhaled vapor. Elias Wren, call sign Drift, didn't blink. He hadn't for 7 minutes. Through a cracked scope wrapped in frost tape and old prayers, he tracked the parade below. Galactic elites. Parade wasn't the wrong word. There were banners. There were drones broadcasting to council networks. There was laughter, loud, guttural, arrogant. 12 in gold-plated exo-armor, each step choreographed like this was some hollow fantasy come to life. They called this a training exercise. Elias called it desecration. His breath, held still, condensed gently against his mask. Far below, the lead elite raised his arms. "Welcome to Cryova 7, scumworld of legend!" Lord Veilcoran's voice boomed, piped through his suit's loudhailers. "Let it be known to all races, no Terran ghost survives the elite blade." More laughter. Drones spun in lazy orbits, filming every moment. Elias moved only his right index finger. Soft touch on the trigger. A memory brushed his thoughts. A snowball fight in Alaska, back when wars were fought by nations, not galaxies. He had lost 2 front teeth and laughed until the cold made his cheeks crack. Now? He just lined up the crosshair. Target, second from left. Exo armor green gold. Weak seam behind the helmet lip. The rifle was old. Not vintage, forgotten. Bolt action, cryo-sealed to resist rust, but time had taken its toll. Its barrel was scarred, its casing scratched with the names of the dead. But Elias had cleaned it. Maintained it. Loved it. More than most people deserved. A drone passed over his head, whining, scanning, blind to the predator buried in permafrost. His heartbeat slowed. Breath in. The elite raised his gauntlet and salute to the cameras. Exhale. A single shot cracked the silence. No flare. No tracer. No sound delay. Just one body collapsing backward, a dull thud muffled by snow. Helmet shattered. No screams. Just confusion. Lord Veilcoran turned sharply. "What the?" Elites spread out, barking commands. Drones looped, scanned, replayed. But Cryova gave no answers. Because Cryova protected its own. Elias worked fast. Rechambered. Adjusted. Relocated 2 meters to the right, leaving no trace. His cloak blended with the terrain, snow-coated fiber, dirt-stitched and faded to a natural frost gray. Not manufactured. Modified. Learned. Breathed in. The enemy commander hissed into comms. "It's sabotage. Locals maybe. Primitive resistance." He sounded annoyed. Not afraid. They weren't afraid yet. Elias didn't smile. He didn't believe in smiles. But deep in his chest, something cold began to crackle, like fire might feel if it were made of ice. He watched the enemy skin again. Predictable. Elites were trained against tactics, not instinct. Another one turned toward the fallen. Too close. Too exposed. Second shot. Lower jawline. Clean exit. The elite's neck snapped like a twig beneath an avalanche. 2 down. Still no source identified. Lord Veilcoran's voice rose again. "Fan out. Full formation. No more games." They spread out, stomping across the ruins, armor clanking in rhythm like an insult to the dead. Behind them, the outpost's rusted flag, still bearing Earth's faded insignia, fluttered once. Then froze in place. Elias watched them divide, clump, second guess. Good. Panic started in the cracks between command and confidence. From his perch, he shifted his gaze across the old Terran base below. He could still see the silhouettes of his old unit, ghosts burned into the snow. They weren't coming back. But he had. The camera drones turned toward the cliff face, scanning harder now. Their optics focused, shifted wavelengths. He didn't move. He waited. Down below, one of the younger elites, nervous in his stance, wandered too far from formation. A scout type, maybe? Meant to impress the audience. Elias adjusted the scope, calculated the drop. Then, a voice on open comms. "Don't look up." The elite froze. Who said that?" "I did," Elias whispered, though he knew the mic wouldn't pick it up. But the fear would travel, like frost through glass. Veilcorin turned sharply. "Unit 9, respond!" Static. "Unit 9, do you copy?" But Unit 9 was already face down, steam rising from a hole in his visor. The camera drone caught only the splash of red against white, pixelated and cut to black. And then, their live broadcast feed glitched. Back in the Council's central network hub, billions of beings watched the screen flicker. Error message. Then, silence. Elias had deployed a blackout pulse. Primitive tech, EMP with an analog twist. Crude. Effective. The elites below now stood blind and cut off. No backup. No show. Just snow. Veilcorin seethed. "Terran! Come out and face us!" Another shot rang out. It hit near his foot, purposefully wide. A warning. Then the same voice echoed across the comms again, gravel-lined and cold. "Cryova doesn't forget. Neither do I." The wind howled across the cliffs. The elites regrouped, eyes darting, breaths shallow. For the first time, they understood. They weren't hunting. They were being hunted. The body vanished within an hour. Unit 9, the youngest of the Galactic elites, was gone. No blood trail. No heat signature. No footprints. Just a melted crater where his helmet had cracked open, now frozen solid again by the wind. Lord Veilcorin stood stiffly over the scene, flanked by two remaining officers. His jaw clenched behind his armored mask. "Scan again," he barked. "Full thermal spread. All frequencies." "No movement," said Commander Ilrich's voice clipped, nervous. "No pulse. No shimmer. No EM trail. Whoever shot them, vanished. Or never moved," Veil muttered. The air was thick with silence. Cryova 7 had turned quiet. Too quiet. The snow no longer howled, it listened. Far above, buried in the fractured shell of an old Terran relay station, Elias watched. His eyes scanned the feed from a cracked monitor jury-rig to one of the old base's surviving uplinks. The broadcast had gone dark, yes, but the internal satellite eyes still blinked, and Elias knew the system better than anyone alive. Earth had designed these satellites to spot cloaked orbital landers. Elites thought they'd disabled them. They hadn't. Elias leaned forward, zooming in. The elite patrol had split into 3 groups, covering the perimeter of the ruins. Good tactics, textbook. But this wasn't a textbook battlefield. This was his hunting ground. He flipped a switch. Power surged through a buried cable linked to a dormant heating vent beneath the snow. It wasn't much, but it would simulate a human body's thermal signature. 3 elites turned toward it instantly. "There!" shouted one. They moved in, weapons raised, sensors blinking. Elias was already behind them. He moved through the blizzard like a whisper dipped in steel, his cloak dragging barely an inch above the ice. In his hand, not the sniper rifle, but a relic, a Terran monoblade, dulled from age but honed just last night on a stone slab. He'd sharpened it in silence, remembering every name carved into the grip. The first elite rounded the corner, eyes on the false heat spike. He didn't even see the shadow rise behind him. A single strike, quiet, clean, slipped beneath the helmet's seal. No scream. Just a gasp that froze before it hit the air. Elias caught the body. Dragged it backward. Gone in under 10 seconds. Above the ridge, another elite saw movement and fired. Too late. The bullet hit ice. A decoy thermal pod exploded in sparks. The blizzard swallowed the noise. "Where's Jorek?" Someone called over comms. Static. Commander, we've lost. Silence, Vale snapped. He was starting to understand. This wasn't a firefight. It was a ghost war. Elias watched them turn in circles, burning energy, bleeding confidence. He could feel it, the shift. Pride was crumbling. Doubt was setting in. And with doubt came cracks. And cracks, Elias knew, were where death slipped through. Back inside the relay tower, he laid the second body beside the first. Each one respectfully placed. He didn't dump them. He wasn't a monster. They weren't prey. Just wrong place, wrong war. He found one of their visors still recording. He pressed play. We are the finest. The humans were always overrated. This is just a snowball exercise. He clicked it off. Then, using the elite's own comm unit, he tuned into their open channel. 3 down, he said quietly. A pause. Then chaos. Who is this? Show yourself! Coward! But one voice didn't shout. Lord Veilcorin remained silent. Thinking. Elias smiled for the first time in years. Just slightly. He switched channels and spoke again, this time with calm precision. Cryova has teeth. You're not walking out. Down below, Vale turned to his second. He's using our own equipment. Tracking our signals. Kill the chatter. Tight beam only. No open calls. Ilrix nodded. But how's he moving undetected? That kind of stealth isn't possible in this cold. Vale didn't answer immediately. His gaze turned toward the horizon, where the remains of the Terran outpost jutted like bones. He's not moving, Vale said finally. What? He's already there. He was always here. The storm began to pick up again, blinding even their suit optics. Snow swirled in chaotic currents, sweeping across the old trenches and broken steel structures. The heat signatures were gone, scattered like chaff in a blizzard. Group Alpha went dark next. 3 elites. No warning. No signals. Just silence. When one of the remaining soldiers tried to scan for biosigns, all he got was feedback, a pulse so sharp it fried his HUD. He tore the helmet off, screaming as the frost bit his exposed face. Elias had unleashed a sonic disruptor, improvised tech, scavenged from an old mining beacon and rewired to short low-grade suits. He was bleeding them. Not just in bodies. In morale. Night fell quickly on Cryova. Not that it changed much. The sky had always been gray, the stars blocked by frozen clouds and static-choked atmosphere. But the darkness made every shadow thicker. Every breath louder. Every step heavier. Only 5 elites remained now. They had formed a tight circle near a broken archway, a former Terran hangar bay now half submerged in ice. Vale, whispered one. We need evac. No, Vale said sharply. Not yet. He wants us to run. He's thinning the herd. I won't give him that satisfaction. He turned toward the darkness. Come out, human, he shouted. You think silence is power? You think killing from the shadows is strength? From somewhere above, a voice replied. No. It's discipline. A shot rang out. Vale turned just in time to see Ilrix collapse, visor shattered. The commander never saw the bullet. But he heard the whisper that followed, echoing through his comms. Only 3 left now. Elias reloaded calmly. He had 27 rounds left. He figured he'd only need 4. The silence was deafening. It pressed down on Veilcorin like a lead weight, suffocating the very breath from his lungs. The wind howled, but it felt distant, like it was merely an echo of something far greater. His remaining soldiers huddled around him, their once certain steps now reduced to quiet, panicked shuffles. 3 left. That's all that remained of his elite squad. They stood at the edge of an ice-furrowed trench, an ancient corridor long forgotten by the galaxy. The ground was hard and unyielding. The remnants of human architecture towered above them like forgotten tombstones, dead, hollow, but still carrying weight in their silence. Keep moving, Vale ordered, his voice sharp yet strained. He wasn't sure if he was commanding them, or himself anymore. The last shot had been a warning. Ulrichs was dead, no question. One of the finest officers in his regiment, shot without warning, without a sound. The sniper, Drift, as they had begun calling him, wasn't just skilled. He was something more. Something that bent the very laws of war to his will. Another flicker of static sounded in his ear. It was the last soldier, the only one still connected to the command network. Vale, we need to leave, now. The voice trembled. Shut up, Yarrick. Vale snapped, the coldness in his tone betraying his growing frustration. We stay. We kill him. Yarrick hesitated. Sir, he's hunting us like game. We're playing his game now. You're telling me we're going to face this thing head on? Vale gritted his teeth. We do what we were born to do. Finish the job. The wind began to pick up, throwing ice shards in their faces like 1,000 needles. Yarrick was right. The longer they stayed, the worse it became. They had been trained for the hunt, for victory. They were supposed to be the apex predators of the galaxy, but here, on this cold wasteland, they were the prey. Elias Wren had made sure of that. A shadow passed across the trench, subtle but unmistakable. Vale's instincts flared. He raised his rifle in an instant, scanning the open field ahead. Nothing. Just snow, swirling endlessly in the frigid winds. He's watching us, Vale muttered. He's always watching. Yarrick clenched his fists, his knuckles white against the blackened armor. I can't. He broke off, his voice thick with dread. His helmet's sensors flickered, desperately trying to connect to something, anything. I know, Vale said, quieter this time. He could feel it, too, the suffocating weight of it all, the sense of being watched. The predator, stalking them through the endless field of ice and shadow. For a moment, the air felt thick with static. It wasn't just the cold. It was something far more primal, a low, buzzing hum that filled the space between every heartbeat. Then it came. A rifle shot, distant, sharp, a crack that split the air like thunder. But there was no immediate impact. No explosion. No sound of armor buckling. Vale turned, scanning. Nothing. Jarek's eyes widened. He pulled at his suit's control panel frantically, eyes darting left to right. Nothing. There's nothing. The systems are dead. I can't see him, he hissed, panic creeping into his voice. Vale grabbed Jarek's shoulder with a force he didn't know he still had. Focus! Focus! His breath came out in ragged bursts as he took in the situation. The perimeter was clear, no thermal readings, no blips on any sensors. But Elias was there, somewhere. Watching. The wind howled again, and this time, the sound was different. It wasn't just the wind. It was movement. There, at the corner of his vision. A flicker of a figure, a shadow slipping through the snow. Before Vale could speak, another shot rang out. This time, it was close. Too close. The soldier closest to Vale, a hulking figure with broad shoulders, was thrown backward. His helmet cracked as if struck by a sledgehammer. His body crumpled to the ground like ragdoll in a windstorm, the life snuffed out in an instant. Vale didn't even flinch. His instincts had already told him what he needed to do. He dropped to a crouch, signaling for Yarrick to follow suit. Elias had done it again. He had taken another. Without sound. Without warning. We can't win this, Yarrick muttered. This isn't a fight. We're ghosts in his world. We're already dead. Vale's eyes burned with a mix of fury and fear. He didn't care about winning. He cared about revenge. He cared about proving that humanity's legacy of survival wasn't over. That the Council's disregard for Earth wasn't going to stand. Jarek's face was barely visible beneath his helmet, but his expression was clear. Desperation? He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a man broken. I'm going, Yarrick said suddenly, voice low. He began backing away from Vale, his movements slow, deliberate. Don't, Vale snapped. His hand shot out, grabbing Jarek's arm before the soldier could retreat further. We stay together. We finished this together. Yarrick shook his head. We're dead anyway. He's not just a man. He's a force. He's been here for years. Alone. We never stood a chance. You think I don't know that? Vale hissed. But we finish this or we die trying. Do you hear me? Yarrick's face softened, but the doubt in his eyes was unmistakable. It's over, Vale. Another shot rang out, right next to them. They both dropped to the snow, instinctively, but the shot had been a warning. Elias was letting them know they were too close to the edge. From the shadows, Elias's voice came again, low and measured. 3 left. Vale's heart hammered in his chest. His mind raced. Elias was baiting them. He knew exactly how they would react. The fear. The desperation. It was all part of the plan. We're not leaving, Vale said through clenched teeth. Yarrick didn't answer. He was already looking to the right, his eyes wide, his pulse racing. He knew what was coming. A flare of light, a burst of heat, invisible to the naked eye, but felt like an inferno. Then, everything went dark. The world went dark. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. No sound, no sight. Just the freezing weight of silence pressing down on Valecorin like a vice. Then, slowly, his mind started to clear. His heart, still racing from the last moments of panic, began to steady. But it was more than just the cold creeping into his veins, it was the weight of the situation settling in. He couldn't hear Yarrick. It wasn't just the silence that stretched in all directions, it was the knowledge that Yarrick was gone. No scream. No final words. Just the cold emptiness of the snow, untouched, unchanged by anything other than the wind. Elias had won. Vale's hand tightened around the grip of his rifle, but he knew it was no use. His team was broken. The last of his soldiers, the proudest warriors the galaxy had ever known, had fallen one by one. His mind scrambled through thoughts, bitter, angry thoughts. How had he let it come to this? It was a trap. All along, it had been a trap. Not just a hunt. Not just a fight for survival. Elias had been playing a deeper game. A voice crackled through his comms, but it wasn't his voice. It wasn't Yarrick's. It was the one that had been haunting him for hours, like a ghost in the storm. I'm still here. It was Elias. Vale's eyes snapped open, scanning the vast expanse of snow that stretched endlessly before him. He knew what was coming next. He could feel it in the air. Elias was no longer hiding. There was no more patience in his movements. Elias had no need to wait anymore. This was the endgame. The wind howled, cutting through the ruins of the Terran outpost like an angry spirit, swirling up around Vale's face as he stood alone, buried in the cold. His comms had died out, the interference from Elias's earlier EMP still lingering in the atmosphere. 3 shots left. Elias had said that earlier. Vale had only 1. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to concentrate. He could still hear Elias's voice in his mind, the words like poison seeping into his veins. You think silence is power? You think killing from the shadows is strength? The question hung in the air like a thick fog. Vale's pride, once unshakable, now felt like a brittle shell around him, one wrong move away from crumbling to dust. You have no honor, he had shouted at Elias earlier, when the sniper had taken Ilrix down. But the truth was, it wasn't about honor. Elias wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting for survival. For revenge. And in this broken, frigid world, where only death and shadows existed, Elias was the only one who understood what that meant. A figure emerged from the corner of Vale's vision. It was Elias. He moved with the fluidity of a ghost, barely disturbing the snow around him as he glided across the ice. The figure was small, unassuming, a man clad in tattered, weathered gear. His rifle wasn't even aimed at Vale yet, but the confidence in his posture was unmistakable. Elias knew the outcome. He had already won. Vale raised his own rifle, the weight of it suddenly too much for his tired arms. His fingers tightened around the trigger. His breaths came in shallow bursts, each one colder than the last. Elias didn't run. He didn't retreat. He didn't even look back. He just stood there. Vale's vision blurred. The world seemed to stretch out into an infinite sea of white and gray. There was no more strategy. No more chance to regroup. No more fight left. There was only the end, the final clash between two dying forces. He could hear his own pulse in his ears, feel the thrum of it against the cold, a desperate drumbeat signaling the final moment. The rifle shook in his hands. And then, click! The sound of the trigger was louder than the blizzard. It was over. Vale's body jerked as the shot tore through the air, the bullet aimed precisely at Elias's chest. A clean kill. A perfect shot. He was sure of it. But Elias was already gone. In a blink, the sniper had vanished. No, moved. The shot was past the place Elias had been standing, barely a fraction of a second too late. The snow whipped through the air, taking the mist of his breath with it. No blood. No death. Only silence. Vale's rifle dropped to the snow, useless. His breath caught in his throat as he searched the shadows, his chest tightening. Elias had moved. But where? How? He should have been dead. And then he saw it. A flicker of light in the distance. A reflection barely visible through the storm, just the briefest glint of metal. It was the barrel of Elias's rifle, shining against the dark horizon. Elias was above him. Vale didn't have time to think. He didn't have time to move. The shot came with no warning. A burst of pain, sharp and hot, tore through Vale's shoulder. The world tilted around him, his vision swimming in the icy expanse of snow. Elias's voice came through the crackling calms, distant but clear. You didn't learn, Vale. This isn't a war. It's a lesson. Vale's knees buckled. He staggered backward, his vision blurring. His breath was ragged, sharp against the cold. His hand reached for his rifle, but the world was spinning now. His body felt heavy, unwilling to obey. Elias had won. He had outlasted them all. Outwitted them. Survived where the elites had failed. And in that moment, as the blood stained the snow beneath him, Vale realized the truth. The hunter had become the hunted. The Galactic elites had come to Cryova 7, expecting to claim victory. But what they hadn't expected was the cold. The relentless, unforgiving cold that had long ago broken their will. That had broken their pride. And now, Cryova's true master stood tall, untouched by arrogance, unswayed by power. One shot echoes forever, Elias had said earlier. And as Vale sank to his knees in the snow, the cold and the silence swallowing him whole, the final shot echoed in his mind. The last sound Vale ever heard was the wind.